Welcome back. In this particular segment, we're going to look at an interview. And in the interview, there is quite a bit of self control that is being displayed. Self control that keeps an individual from saying something or doing something that could potentially be disastrous for them. Uh, we can say that from this particular interview, that there has been a change, a maturing of the person that's being interviewed. And it shows in the way that they carefully choose what to say and how to say it. So let's get into the video and see what we can gain from the conversation.
Richard, I don't want to be obsessed with race, but this is a different angle I've really never heard anybody discuss. Can white writers write for you? You know what I mean?
If they write for the human being in me, yes. If they write,
Right.
if they try to write for some idea they have of what I would be as a black person, they usually cannot do that.
Can you tell when you get a page of dialogue that they have a tin ear for what you sound like?
Yeah, I think if they just write, if I get a script just of a person, I can understand it a lot better than someone saying, and he's black, and he has all this, and you read it, it makes you sick. You know, when they write like that. And I would prefer they didn't, for me.
Yeah. What would be a case of somebody trying?
So now we see that Mr. Pryor has made it known what he would prefer. He would prefer that individuals who write for him, and when they're talking about writing, they're talking about as far as scripts are concerned, as far as lines that would need to be said, acted out. That's what he means by writing for him. Um, and then it may even flow over into some of the stand-up routine, the jokes, the comedy that he does. But regardless of what it may be, he's asking that individuals write to the humanity in him. They write as if they're writing for a human being and not allow his ethnicity to override their ability to write just for who he is as a person. He's a human. And so he's also made it clear that he gets scripts and he looks at them and they're written for what he might sound like or what they might think he sounds like as a black man, and it makes him sick. So in the way that he just expressed how he felt, Mr. Pryor is being very controlled with what he says. He's being very cautious about what he says so that the message behind how he thinks is not misconstrued by the way that he communicates it. Right? That's evidence of self-control. Let's keep going.
Sound black? Could you give an example?
You know, like, I mean, I know they don't mean any harm, but they don't realize how ignorant it is when they're trying to have that black voice that some whites try to do, that really don't do well.
Like, why you jive turkey?
Yeah.
Why don't you get out of here? You know, that kind of thing. Because they never really, I'm sure it's true of there are people like myself who do know what they're saying and could do it, I think is right. I honestly think I could.
Or do what? What are you talking
I think
about?
I could write for you in your vernacular because of...
But what is my vernacular?
Well, because I hang out with...
Yeah, but what is my vernacular? What are you talking about?
Well, like this hog is all in my yoke.
Right, Dick. What are you talking about? I mean, you know, what is...
And herein is the beginning of a situation where Mr. Pryor is going to have to employ a great degree of self-control. Because here's the thing. This situation is quickly sliding towards being stereotypical. What do we mean by that? Well, you heard Mr. Cavett say that I can speak in your vernacular, right? And he attributes his ability to speak in Mr. Pryor's vernacular because of the fact that he has in his company as friends other African Americans. And so he's able to speak. He would be able to write. He'd be different from the rest of these individuals. He'd be able to write in a way that Mr. Pryor would be able to understand what he's saying, but at the same time, he would be able to write for him as a black man. So this is a situation that can quickly become contentious. This can be difficult now, okay? And even Mr. Cavett said a few lines, and Mr. Pryor still didn't know what he was talking about. What are you saying? So he might have painted himself into a corner here, Mr. Cavett. So let's see how the conversation progresses. And what I want you to look at is the amount of stoicism that Mr. Pryor uses in an effort to try to understand what Mr. Cavett is trying to bring out. Let's keep going.
What is it that, what do you think I am? What do I talk like, something?
No, I simply know this, that when
Explain
I
yourself.
know that when... Now, you know as well as I do that if you're with a group of friends you grew up with or something, and a couple of au fait cats come about and talk, and you want to talk so they don't understand, you can, even as perhaps people from the Caribbean will suddenly go into a, like, have you ever been in the Caribbean where I'm just going to move back a little
No,
bit, Richard.
no, I'm just trying to understand. I don't understand you.
Here's exactly what I mean. In the Caribbean, there's a dialect that is English. It sounds like it's not.
Pidgin English.
Yeah, so a man, but they're actually saying, if you saw a transcript, the man at the desk will say to you, good evening, Mr. Cavett, we think we have your room ready in just a minute. How did you for my darling? And on the other side up.
Ja, det är man.
And what he was saying is, why don't you take that luggage over on the other side there? Why don't you take that luggage over on the other side there?
Yeah.
But he didn't quite want me to know that he was correcting someone or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, how the hell did I get into this?
And that is a wonderful question that Mr. Cavett just said. How did he get into this? He's starting to realize that he's going down the path that really, really, really is stereotypical. Yeah. Some would say that this is racial profiling. I won't be as staunch as that, but I'm seeing that there are some generalizations, some stereotypes that are involved in the premise that Mr. Cavett has set up. Namely, one is that all African American people speak alike. We all have the same vernacular. We all use the same words and phrases to express how we feel, and that is incorrect. And so now he's going through trying to give an example to support the premise that he has stated, and he's not very good at what he's doing, right? He's encountering difficulty explaining himself because in the end, it really has no basis. The fact that he would be able to write for someone according to their color instead of writing for them according to who they are as a human being. I think Mr. Pryor was right in this particular regard. Let's keep going.
Now, there's a lot of funny stuff in this book.
No, I'm trying to, I don't understand.
But what part don't you understand?
None of it.
No. My beginning question was, I thought, a simple, harmless one, which was, do you have the problem of a writer trying to write what he thinks is, what? The way a black guy would talk
Do I have a problem with it?
when somebody hands you a script for something?
No.
No. Well, then why did you say that's a problem in the interview I read, in which, now, you can't just hang my ass out here like this.
Wait. Okay. When was that interview?
Might have been several years old.
Then that don't apply right now.
Because the new Pryor is with us.
It's not a new prior, it's just I'm different about my feelings about people and about how I feel about them, how they feel about me.
Is that a gradual thing, or was it kind of an overnight change from after you survived the horror of your
No,
accident?
I just think it's, for me, it's the way I want to be as a grown-up person. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
So now we see Mr. Pryor is really displaying self-control because he's trying to understand. He's trying to fully comprehend what it is that Mr. Cavett is saying. And he's showing this as a result of, according to him, changing the way that he wants to live. This is the way he wants to live now. This is the essence of who he is now, being able to control himself fully. He's had some difficulties with alcohol in the past, and so the things that have held him in addiction He's freed himself from it, and he understands the importance of self-control. He understands the importance of presenting his best self to the world. He sees that that's the most benefit in it for himself and for everyone that's acquainted with him. Let's keep going.
And I do the best I can, man.
Are you ever approached a lot to, say, do public service announcements and?
Public service announcement?
Oh, you know, like Richard, would you talk to kids, look into that camera, and say, "Joke is bad"?
I've been approached, but I don't know that helps. I mean, unfortunately, people have to do what they would like to do. You can only show them better than you can tell them. How you live is how they live. If you don't have drink around and you're not alcoholic and you're not, borderline alcoholic yourself, they tend not to have that problem. But if every time you have a problem, you take a pill or take some drink, they find it all right to do.
Are you technically a recovered alcoholic?
Now, that was a powerful point. Powerful point. He mentioned that, Mr. Pryor mentioned that you can show someone better than you can tell them. So doing public service announcements are good, but they have their place. If you notice, toward the end of what he was saying, Mr. Pryor really put the emphasis on the parents. He really did. Because he mentioned that when a parent is confronted with a difficult situation, if the first thing they do is go to the liquor cabinet and pour themselves a drink, or if the first thing they do is pop a pill in order to try to deal with the difficulties involved in their situation, then those that's looking on, the children, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to do the same thing. So it starts with the example that the parents set. Now, of course, Mr. Pryor, from what he just said, he's okay with doing public service announcements. He's okay with pushing positivity, but the example of those closest to the children is going to have the most impact. So why not just behave in a way that's going to be beneficial for your children? Self-control. Once again, self-control. You're restraining yourself from doing anything that could affect yourself or those around you in a negative fashion. Powerful statement, Mr. Pryor. Let's keep going.
Technically,
Or in fact?
I just say that a day at a time, I try not to drink. And so far, it'll be 3 years, God's been with me.
Now, how do you account for? Anyone opposed to that?
Also, at this particular point, I wanted to stop. I had to, because the measure of a man, in a lot of cases, is not how he responds to difficulty, but how he responds to praise. Do you notice that after Mr. Pryor made it known that he had been sober for 3 years, which is a wonderful thing? This is a testament to the fact that he has grown and he has taken on a certain level of self-control. But do you notice that during the applause and the cheering, he's stoic? The countenance on his face doesn't change. His posture, his position doesn't change. He's stoic. Why? Because the applause and the well wishes are not necessary for him anymore. He doesn't need those things. Due to the fact that he's been sober for 3 years, he has experienced how much better life is after applying self-control in the areas that he needed it. He mentioned that in 3 years he hadn't taken a drink. That's self-control. That's about being the best version of himself that he can present to the world. And he has seen the benefit of becoming that particular person. So he can be stoic when there's applause, because he's already made up in his mind that this is the right course to take. He doesn't need anybody to agree with him. His life is living proof that self-control can be, when it's used properly, can be helpful. Let's keep going.
How do I do that? How do you account for the fact that Murphy has never had any such problem?
I don't know him that well. So I wouldn't account for anything about him.
Is it different, though, in that if you were coming up now,
yes, if I was coming up now.
Supposedly, is it an easier climate for a young comic to come up now than, say, for Eddie, from what you came through?
I came through a lot.
Yeah, you did.
The period that I came through it was a lot in that period.
You paid your dues and several other people.
Yeah, there was a lot. And he doesn't have to do that because I did it.
And so do you notice there's a lot of self-control in this particular part of the segment. When questioned about Mr. Murphy, and when questioned about why he hasn't had the difficulties that Mr. Pryor has had, do you notice that Mr. Pryor does not go into anything negative? He doesn't. He simply states fact. He says that Mr. Pryor has gone through so much so that Mr. Murphy, the one who comes after him, doesn't have to do the things that he had to do. That's just facts. It's factual. We know Mr. Pryor to be a comedy genius. We know this. And we know that some of the issues that he brought to the fore were issues that society was dealing with, and the way that he did it really opened up comedy for a lot of individuals. Whether you agree with his style or not, he most definitely was a pioneer. And so he's saying that the work that he has put in should serve as a stepping stone for someone that's coming after him. So let's keep going.
And there was no one ahead of you to do it for you?
Well, for me, I mean, Dick Gregory.
Dick Gregory, that's the
Dick
first,
Gregory made
right.
it possible for me.
Yeah.
And someone made it possible for Dick Gregory. You know, we just pass it on, keep passing the torch.
Yeah. The name of your film?
Yeah.
JoJo?
Dancer.
JoJo, comma?
Dancer, your life is calling.
Yeah. And I think I was right when I said it's more biographical maybe than anything you've done before?
Yes, I would say that. I would say also that people coming to see this, it's not a Richard Pryor movie like Stir Crazy or something like this. It's a thinking movie. I believe that you have to stretch yourself in this. Mm-hmm. I don't think everyone will like it, but I think that I made a good film. Yeah. If you like films, if you like a story that's complicated and deals with a lot of stuff, there are some laughs in it, but it's really a drama about behind the laughter.
And it would be very close to, I think I read something you said about it, that it's a guy who at the peak of his career has no self-esteem or something. Am I overstating it, or
yes, you are overstating
it or ruining it for
no,
you?
You're not ruining it for me, but it's just that it's a different kind of movie for me. I've never done anything like this, and I don't know. I hope that I pulled it off.
Did wise heads say you're making a terrible mistake, keep them laughing?
No.
Well, that's good.
No.
Yeah. No. Hey, I'm very happy.
So we can see that on the part of Mr. Pryor, there has been quite a bit of taking and accepting accountability. Quite a bit of self-control has been applied in his life, and we can see the benefit of it. So much so that he's done a departure from comedy into a movie, as he mentioned. It's about thinking. It's a good story, but it requires an individual to look at the story that he's presented and really try to gain some insight from it, to take away some wisdom, some practical application that can be used to make your life better. That's what this movie is about. It's a cautionary tale. And so you can see how Mr. Pryor is changing underneath the discipline of self-control. He's bringing more to bear from a nature where he is trying to assist. And if individuals want to take his example and use the good part and discard the bad part, then he's okay with that. Okay, let's finish it up, and then I'll offer up my final thoughts.
Happy to have you here.
It's good to see you again, man.
During the break, I'll try to make clear that thing I was talking about earlier.
Okay.
We have a message. We'll be right back.
So there you have it. Mr. Pryor, in his own words, has described his journey with self-control, being able to master the addictions that he has. But now, one thing I want you to keep in mind for my final statements on this particular segment with Mr. Pryor and Mr. Cavett. There are several instances in this particular video where Mr. Pryor could have let go of self-control and really, really done some damage. Because first of all, it should be understood that the vernacular that's spoken by a lot of African Americans is not the vernacular spoken by all. Experiences in life, where you grow up, what region you live in, all of these things has a bearing on the particular vernacular that everyone speaks, not just African Americans. And then the comparison made between him and Mr. Eddie Murphy, that could have been a cause of unrestraint. That could have been a cause where Mr. Pryor could have really said some negative things, and yet he chose not to. And then also in the question about his sobriety, whether or not he's been asked to do public service announcement. In each and every situation that Mr. Pryor was put in, I think he responded to those situations quite admirably. He was able to keep his calm. He was able to keep his composure because his whole point in being here was to showcase this new and improved version of himself. This is the way that he chooses to live now. Not with negativity, but with positivity, because he understands the benefit of self-control. He understands what he's able to accomplish now because he has control over himself, how he feels, how he thinks, and what he decides to do. He understands the power behind it. And so there's nothing in the interview that could sway him from that. There's nothing in the interview. And so I think that for us gentlemen, this is a good example of what self-control, being able to maintain control over your emotions and deal with a situation logically, it's a prime example of what can be accomplished. There's no one who was able to come away from that particular interview, that segment of the interview, with anything negative to say about Mr. Pryor. He was honest, he was forthright, but most of all, he was positive. He didn't allow what was said to him, what subjects were brought up, he didn't allow anyone to push him away from who he was determined to be. Those are my thoughts. I'm so glad that you came back to hear me out. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Be easy.